in our living rooms in the future. Over
Thank
to
you.
Praminda.
Thank you for that, Nigel. And thank you for inviting me to share some of the research that we've been doing with you. I've got some excellent memories of the ILC down in Symington when we started one of our most ambitious projects, which turned out to be the world's first ceiling-based robot. And Nigel arranged for the whole team, all the engineers and stakeholders working on the project, to come over to the ILC. And we had a fantastic day of playing around with all the different technologies you had available, and even getting ourselves hoisted up and seeing how it felt. And so that's always stuck with me in terms of understanding the scope of user needs and accessibility and the need for diversity, and thinking about different tools and different approaches for different people. So I'm just going to do a screen share, and I'm glad to see the ILC is going strong, and I think it would be nice, having moved up to Nottingham, I'm trying to find a similar kind of place to yours, and I haven't done this yet. So it'll be nice to see how we might propagate what you're doing across the country. I'm just going to do a share screen now. And here we are. I hope you can see me okay and see the screen. Yes. I'm sharing. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to talk about the trial we have done in relation to using robots to tackle social isolation and lack of physical activity. And our aim was to use telepresence robots to develop solutions to provide a more inclusive and accessible means for people to be able to interact socially and engage. And we are coming from understanding and having built insights into some of the limitations regarding shortage in health and social care support, and also buoyed by the immense generosity that people showed during the COVID period, where there was a huge outpouring of volunteers wanting to help other people. But I'm also going to look at how we've been using, and in that period, during that COVID period, we used technology in another way, the same telepresence robots I'm going to talk to you about and explain and give you a little demonstration of them as well, to help people who were stuck at home during that time to be able to get out and about and enjoy, in our case, was a lovely art gallery down in Hastings. And we're looking at developing that further to enable people who aren't able to get out of their homes very easily. And in doing all of this, with my researcher hat on, it is about being able to identify the number of challenges we've got, both technical challenges, social and logistic challenges, to be able to understand these better so that we can see more of these technologies getting out there and people being able to use and adopt them. And so I'm going to start off by telling a little about embodied intelligence, but also what I'm doing up here in Nottingham. So I've been here for 2 years now, and embodied intelligence is taking the AI out of a black box from your laptop and putting it on a system that can go about sensing the environment, prod things, push things, find out what's happening, and then the AI can come to life, if you like. That might be a scary thing for some people, but it is about adding an ability for an AI system to feel the world, to sense the world, and to be able to interact with us to find out what's happening at a given time in a given place. So rather than a system that's been trained somewhere and some historic data, embodied intelligence is about a system that's able to make sense of the world and update its learning by interacting with us. So we're working on some key parts of bringing embodied intelligence to support us with health and well-being. And we're looking at one of the key things that is holding things back, which is a lack of adequate safety testing and benchmarking to prove these technologies are going to be reliable and they operate in the same way as we designed them to. For this, we use user-centered design methods, which are in ensuring that we understand people's individual needs, developing this research ethically and responsibly, using smart sensors and smart sensing technologies to be able to provide the robot the information it needs to be able to operate in our complex and changing real world, to be able to make actuators that can help us with manipulating things, help with feeding, dressing, some of the projects. And telepresence and teleoperation, which is what we're going to deep dive in the next few half an hour. And then there is this issue about people being able to operate these systems themselves. And this is where making sure the interfaces and interactions are accessible. So people with speech impairments or hearing impairments or mobility impairments can still use these systems. And then there is a research area on how these things move around our space without damaging our environment. So as part of this, one of the things that we are keen on ensuring is that it's not just about the foundational background research. We also want to make sure that as we develop these technologies, we're also mindful of the various organizational and regulatory processes that are needed to ensure that this technology does actually get deployed, get implemented, and this happens in a way which ensures that the system is going to operate reliably and effectively. So there are many new issues which are emerging with the Internet of Things and sensors in the cloud which are related to cybersecurity issues. This also results in many ethical and legal questions which still need to be answered. And then there is this whole thing about ensuring these systems are developed in a way that they are financially sustainable and affordable. And this is where the interesting point about health inequalities comes in as well. We want to make sure that as we develop these technologies, they're not going to be for the few who have the funds to be able to afford them. So as I develop this research, I also try to bring together a whole range of expertise to be able to inform our processes as we go along. And so we're very fortunate here at Nottingham to have two key pillars and institutions supporting those two key pillars, which are the Health and Technologies Innovation and the clinical and regulatory expertise that's needed to be able to develop these technologies. So I'm going to talk about two projects, so the Trailblazers one, but also I thought it would be useful to talk about the other one, which is the person is being visited in the home, but the person can also get out of their home and be in a gallery in New York or in Italy or Paris or London. But the talk is focused on our learning from this project so that other people deploying these technologies can learn from what we've learned and be able to progress faster and further. So I'm going to start off with the first project, which we call Trailblazers Training Together. And the reason why we called it Training Together, because we were bringing volunteers to be able to support a scheme whereby they could socially interact and offer support for exercises to people with lived experience of frailty who might have not feel so confident about going out and about and need somebody to shore up their own confidence and motivations and connect them back to the real world. And this project was funded by the Bristol, North Somerset and South Gloucestershire Clinical Commissioning Group, together with Age UK Bristol, who administered the funding, and facilitated by Bristol Health Partners. During the COVID period, I also started a community interest company called Robotics Good, and I'll tell you a bit about that. So we supported the project. And then Kirsty Brown, Fitness for Life, without whom this project wouldn't have been successful at all. So she was absolutely instrumental in making this happen, and you'll see why. One of the things to say as I move into talking about the project is that as we move closer to adoption of innovation in health and social care, we know there is a requirement to show evidence of efficacy. So is this thing actually doing what you say it's going to do? Is it actually going to help people in the way you say it is? And so given that AI in robotics, particularly when it's applied in health and social care, is still an emerging area, there is still not enough understanding as to what are the appropriate criteria to use to determine when something is fit for adoption. So we've started to look more and more to the NICE, which is the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence guidelines, as well as NHS digital technology assessment criteria, etc., to look to see where the different technologies that we are developing and those that are already ready for deployment sit. And based on that, we look at the NICE guidelines to see what kind of evidence that we need to collect in order to be able to give health and social care professionals the confidence that this is fit for purpose. So in the technologies that we're looking at evidence at tier 2. These are the technologies for informing, monitoring, and communicating. And 3A, heading a bit towards 3B. And so helping people self-manage, the technologies help people self-manage, and also helping people to adopt healthier habits and lifestyle. This is about preventative behavior change. And then as part of this, clinical safety, thinking about data protection, technical assurance, what it means in the context of different types of technology, the interoperability side as we move more towards digital systems, and usability and acceptance of these technologies is paramount. So first of all, why telepresence? Actually, I'm just thinking when Nigel said, a mixture of audience, I started with why telepresence. I should have started with what is telepresence, so we'll come to that. But why telepresence? Actually, maybe let's go on to the, let's go on to what is telepresence, and then I'll come back to this slide. So let me tell you a bit about telepresence. So this is about Zoom on wheels. So Professor Clark, I hope it's not as intimidating as you said Zoom might feel and not so comfortable, but it is a system, as you can see here on your screen. It's got a little screen on top of a ball, which is connected to a mobile base with wheels. And the person who is at the other end on the call can drive this robot around the space of the user. So you can drive it around, have a conversation, so look at the plants, admire the plants, say hello to the cat, talk to the person. And for the person at this end, it feels like this person visiting on this mobile telepresence robot is actually there. And we use it often for our sons to visit us. One's in Germany, one's in Bristol, and they come and visit and they talk to me while I'm preparing food in the kitchen, etc. So I'm going to show you a quick video of how this works.
Caleb-Solly is connecting. Hello there, Richard.
Hi, Praminda. Nice to see you again.
How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good, thanks. I'm glad you're visiting me because I wouldn't really want to go to the clinic today.
Yes, it's not there from yesterday.
Oh, the raising hands.
Yes, let's have a go at doing those. So, if you raise your hand gently, hold for count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and then lower them again. That's it. How did that feel? I think you might be slouching there, so I'm just going to move to the side so I get a better view and better view of your posture. So I'm just going to move over here, and I should be able to see you better. Oh yes, just as I thought. You are slouching a bit forward there, so if you want to just sit back.
So that was just giving you a little idea. There was more in that video. We were having a little banter and conversation and talking about the weather and the plants and the cat, etc. So you can see how the telepresence system to the person who's there and to the person who's visiting, who's got a view of the space and can move themselves around, feels a more immersive experience. So that's telepresence. So let me go back to some of the slides about why telepresence. So we were looking at telepresence as a means to be able to address the increase in social isolation, particularly after COVID. There were reduced levels of physical activity, with people having much more limited access to frequent support, increase in hospital admissions, from deconditioning because people weren't going out and about or had spent long periods in hospital, health inequalities in the community, so people not having access to the same support as everybody else, and also a lack of volunteers who are unable to physically travel to people and meet people. So Age UK run a very well formulated and structured volunteer scheme, and we were able to piggyback on that in terms of their processes and their checking, etc. But I'm going to just play a quick video about Emma Gwynn, who used to work at Brunel Care. I think she's moved to another role now, telling a little bit about her view of telepresence robots.
So my name is Emma Gwynn and I work for Brunel Care. We're a Bristol-based charity providing high quality housing care and support for older people in the Southwest. We support people to remain as independent as possible for as long as possible. Many of the people that live with us, our tenants, our residents, their life has been limited over the pandemic. So the project gives a chance to build connections and build community and look at how we use technology in a completely different way. We're really excited to consider how we can support our volunteers to help someone with their loneliness, build companionship, and actually help the people that we support across our sites to connect with each other. I think the project will give us an opportunity to address accessibility. People can volunteer with us when they wouldn't ordinarily be able to. They wouldn't necessarily leave their home. So it gives a really lovely opportunity for people to connect in their own way and in their own time.
And this is exactly what we found on the project. It was people who wanted to volunteer, but they weren't able to volunteer in the way they used to before being able to do that. So how did it work? It worked with us setting up pairing a community volunteer with a client. And the idea was to do this over a 6-week period where the volunteer interacted with the client through a telepresence robot. And the 6-week interaction was about developing some social interaction, signposting people to things that they could do outside of the home, but most importantly, supporting them to go through a specially created exercise program. In most cases, was a seated exercise program. And the idea was at the end of this, we wanted to have a client that would feel confident to be able to start to participate in activities outside the home. And so I'm just going to stop that video because we've seen that. So I'm going to take you through, the process and each of the steps and what they involved in the scheme. So this project was as much about seeing whether this type of service would work, but it was also about working out what was needed at a process level, an organizational level, at a training level, to be able to ensure that this would work on a large scale in a sustainable manner. So the project was implemented in 3 phases. We partnered with Brunel Care and Extra Care Charitable Trust. We went through first 4 months of the project, putting together a rigorous process for volunteer selection, recruitment, training. Remember, this is about people going into somebody's home. Even though they're going in through a robot, they're still entering somebody's house. So we wanted to make sure that we had set up something that was stood up to the expectations and the rigor, particularly the ones set up by Age UK for their face-to-face volunteer service. we had to set up a framework for how we would run these trials, how we conduct risk assessments, and how we intended to be able to ensure that the trials were actually generating learning for intended outcomes. And then we wanted to conduct a study, which we did in relation to, okay, so you've got one type of intervention, which is somebody coming in on the telepresence robot, but what about other types of interventions to be able to encourage people to exercise? So we have developed a special Alexa app, which I would, if there's another opportunity, we can do something else where I demonstrate what that Alexa app is about and how it works. So we try to compare it with the telepresence service. And then phase 3, which unfortunately wasn't able to be completely finished off because we came to the end of the funding period and BNSSG didn't give us an extension. So the first phase is about making sure that the client and volunteer would fit. It's important to ensure that the person who's being supported in the home actually doesn't have access to any other means, and this would be beneficial to them. They would benefit from somebody encouraging them and supporting them and talking them through exercise on a regular basis. By regular, I mean up to 3 times a week for up to half an hour or 40 minutes. And they need to be able to give informed consent and be able and willing to join them with activities. And for the volunteer, it's really important that the person providing this service to somebody in their home also is able to communicate well, because they're talking somebody through exercises, has the right attitude to be motivational and positive, because quite a few people, when they've been on their own for a while, can start to feel quite depressed and lonely, and depressed in the clinical sense as well. So the motivation and attitude is important, and obviously successful DBS check and successful completion of a training program. So the training program is key to the success of this and any future trials, and we've learned a lot from iterating through doing this a few times round. So the volunteer is trained 3 training packages. The first one is the Age UK safeguarding module, and they have to sign the agreement, the volunteer scheme agreement. The second package is where Kirsty came in, and she is a fitness instructor, works a lot with the older population in extra care and other services, who provided the training for the volunteer to ensure that they knew how to go through an exercise session with people, to be able to notice any signs of distress or trouble and what to do in that situation if it did arise. And then the third package is how to actually drive this robot. Now, one might say it is quite straightforward and simple. So use the arrow keys on your keyboard, and then you can point and click, and the robot moves to face whatever you want to look at. However, it's important that this is a conversation between 2 people, and the technology has to feel quite transparent, like it isn't there. So we want to have people trained to engage in a conversation that feels really sociable and intimate. So the training that needs to be provided for a person to be able to have that conversation that way needs thought as to where to position yourself, how to move around the person, how to make them feel comfortable, how to understand what else is going on in the environment might interfere or impact that session that they're having. And then the compatibility side is important. We found we had to swap out and change some of the pairs we've got, because people need to be able to get along with each other. They're seeing them 3 times a week, and they want to feel comfortable with them, and they need to, feel that this is a person that they're happy to have in their home. So what we've learned about client-volunteer matching is that it's really a crucial part of the success of the intervention. And then the process for weekly updates, because this was a research project. We had to do this more often to ensure that the relationship was working, the volunteer knew what was happening, the client was happy with what was happening, and then solving any technical and practical issues, of which there were quite a few. And we had an exit assessment and questionnaire, and I will show you that. But just to recap on the process, and this is really important, and when you think about the process, is why this slide is so full of information is because we cannot cut corners when it comes to deploying technology. It's really important to understand what are the crucial aspects of setting up a structure, of setting up a system. It's a new care pathway, if you like, in how this process works and is supported. And it's really important for people to realize that you can't just take a piece of technology, as I'm sure you all know with the ILC, and just put it into somebody's home and expect everything's going to work out. So working with volunteers, very key stages, working with the clients or service users, key stages. If any of these are missed out or not done properly, it will not be successful, the project. So for our outcomes, it took us so long to prepare all those processes to be able to get ethics approval. Now, we didn't start our trials till late September. And so we weren't able to recruit as many people and pairs as we had intended to at the start. However, we got 5 volunteers, and I'd like to point out the age range here. So these are volunteers, 22 to 74. And then our clients, 7 of them, 65 to 84. So 2 of our volunteers loved their experience so much that they volunteered with another service user as well. And for us, it was not just about trying to show improvements or outcomes for the clients in terms of reduced levels of frailty and more feeling of independence and improved digital confidence. It was also about how could we support volunteers to volunteer in a more flexible manner, increase our own knowledge of digital tools and technologies, and then also gain experience of how to provide physical support and training for somebody remotely, so they could go on and do this elsewhere. And also to become more informed in how to signpost people to other activities. This wasn't just about using a technology to address a problem, but it was about using the technology to get people connecting more with their communities and with other people. We had a range of evaluation criteria that we used in terms of assessing effectiveness. Of course, 6 weeks is not very long. And even in those 6 weeks, though, I have to say, we did see improvement. Nigel, how much longer do I have? Was it 7:40 or was it 7:50?
It will have little less time for questions, but you can go on to 7:50. Okay,
I'll try to move on. Thank you. So you can see pre-assessment and post-assessment. So this is after the trial. One of the things to note here is Bluebell. Now we found we had to call the robots names like, we gave them flower names, Bluebell, Rose, and Daisy, because there's still a lot of anxiety people have about robots. If you say, I'm bringing a robot to your house, is differently received to when we say we're bringing Bluebell and Sally will be visiting you on Bluebell. And we found that made such a big difference in people's acceptance of that. And they enjoy saying Sally came to visit me on Bluebell. And so these are the different metrics, and you could see there was an improvement over the trial. And we also found small improvements to the frailty score. So from the assessments we did, we were able to calculate a frailty score. And while this is still in the severely frail, we have shown an improvement. This is just a result of one client. We were able to show this across the cohort. And so the improvements with social confidence, cognition, memory, physical strength, balance, self-perceived health, their positivity, their outlook on life, and their perceptions of the technology. And these are important factors to note moving forward. And I'm quickly going to do a quick review of the other project, which was looking at things the other way around. Somebody who is disabled or is needing to shield can go out and about. So we put robots in museums. We call that Being Here project, and we worked with Hastings Contemporary. And Nigel, I'll share these slides and post this link to you. So I would encourage you to watch this video later on. And this is about how disabled people use the robot to visit the gallery, as well as schools which were in very deprived socioeconomic areas in Hastings. Hastings is a place with large pockets of economically deprived communities, and they're not able to get out and about. They're not able to go on school trips to museums and galleries. And you will see how the robots enable them, and Hastings is still using this robot to enable school children to come and visit the gallery. And we looked at various factors in terms of how successful this project was. In terms of porosity, so the robot being a conduit for connecting people to places where they can't visit or are not able to, or feel they can't visit as well. The interaction and personalization that this brings to experience, sharing of experiences. So the whole class is going on this tour through the robot, and then the robot themselves becoming a tool for helping people to understand robotics and technology and what it offers. So what did we learn? I've grouped these according to three different aspects. So the first one is social aspects, so the social challenges. People are anxious that this would mean having robots, that they get less visits from people. And that can happen. That is a risk that we have to consider. So we have to be very careful in how we deploy these and who we deploy them for and how long, and what is the purpose of this, and the fact that we are mindful that it doesn't result in the reduction of people seeing other people, touching other people and holding hands. Some people can see this as an imposition, as a chore, because Professor Clark, as you said on the Zoom call, you've got an advantage. Maybe you could just dress up yourself from the top. But with this, people had to get dressed, and they found, oh, somebody's going to visit, and I've got to fix myself up, and I've got to fix the house up. And for some people, that can feel like an imposition. People are still anxious about robots. The lovely science fiction movies and the media have got a lot to answer for there. And then there's this, not for me. Nobody feels that they need assistance and technology. So we're quite open and happy for alternative solutions. And then there are the logistic issues. So people have got homes whereby not nice and open expanses of space where you can drive around. But you have a situation where you see here people's walkers, cat toys, which they do not want to remove because a cat put them there, and a cat is important to people, and their things are important. And we can't say, move these to the side. We've got to work around them. So we've got to see how that works. And one of the things that's really exciting about working around them was the person who was being supported giving instructions to the driver to say, watch out on your left there. And that made them feel really good, because they felt they were supporting the person driving the robot to in their mission of moving around their house. There are issues about privacy and safety we have to consider, the support and maintenance, and how we navigate around clutter. And then there are these big technical barriers, which I think the government needs to answer. We have large pockets to this country, good coverage. Old buildings, thick walls, ambient noise in the space, people have their televisions and radios on, lack of power sockets in people's houses, nowhere to plug in the docking station, limited spaces for docking stations, etc. So from this, one of the things, and this is my last slide, is what do we do in terms of supporting people with deploying this technology? So I realized the gap from working in research. The gap is helping people to understand how this technology can be used, supporting them in those initial stages of deploying the technology, being there for them if something goes wrong, and supporting people with training of the technology. And that's all for me. Sorry, I've taken all of my time and left you 2 minutes with questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Praminda. That was fantastic. Really good overview. For questions, people can either put their hand up. So if I go to multi-view, or you can pop a question in the chat. We'll just take 1 or 2 questions. I'm going to use my my chair's prerogative in this instance to ask. The first one is, did you consider what a paying service might be? So obviously the advantage of the telepresence robot is the volunteer could support lots of clients without having to travel. But obviously you've got the cost of the robot itself, and you know, did you can think about what a paid for model might be like?
Yeah, so particularly in Brunel Care, one of the things we found is that we had a couple of clients there, and we had one robot, and the care manager was able to take the robot around when they knew it was time for the person to get their volunteer. So I think a shared model where one organization can have one system and then that can be scheduled is one approach to use. In terms of thinking about this for people in the community, I think that the benefit comes from, it depends on who people using it, is from that, just that incentive to get people mobilized and socialized again. And then the idea should always be, is then how can we get this person involved in exercise clubs or other social activities and book clubs, etc. And one of the things that we found was you don't have to have that robot with the person forever. One of our service users went on to buy their own iPad, so then they could start using WhatsApp with their relatives and friends. And they didn't want to do this before, but after having used this, they felt more confident about it. So I think in terms of the business model, we're looking at a scheme which could be loan-based, which could work very successfully, rather than full out purchase.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions from people? No. Oh yeah, Jeremy. Yeah, you need to come off mute. It's the button at the bottom of the screen with the microphone. Yeah, you just did it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I was just thinking of people who have medical or other emergencies. Would sort of emergency services such as paramedics or GPs eventually have sort of access to these services? It could be helpful.
Yes, indeed. I think so this is some of the other use cases that we're considering for triaging, especially. So a social care worker, these things fold up and you can just pick them up and put them in the back seat of the car and strap them in. So a social health worker could be taking these around, and then this can become all different people. So it can become your physiotherapist coming to have a look and talk you through exercises. It can become your occupational therapist who wants to have a look around your house. Or it can become a GP. So it does offer the opportunity, I think, to be able to get quicker turnaround in terms of people being able to visit you and then be able to make informed decisions about what kind of support you need much quicker than having to wait to get the right schedule and the right time allocation.
Thank you very much.
And just one last question from me. What if somebody were to take one of these over 2 years, you know, typically how much per month would it cost to have a telepresence robot in your home?
Well, we are looking at different models. We've got an offer out at the moment, £150 a month for first 3 months. I think one of the things to think about is the layout cost so if you were to buy this outright, we're looking at between, it depends on the software packages that come with it to be able to enable the links, etc. Between 5,000 and 6,000. But if we were to do a loan scheme, then you have got to break down the cost with the cost of the installation and ongoing maintenance and to be on call. So I think, yeah, I'm not sure how it would work, but a similar model to the stair lift, maybe, how that's done by housing schemes and community schemes, etc. So we still got work to do. We're not sure, and the make and break. We're a community interest company, so yeah, a not-for-profit for commercial profit. So it's we want to get people using this, really.
Yeah. Well, of course, and the price will come down as they become more common. Still early days yet. Well, thank you very much indeed for that. If anybody would like to get in touch with Praminda, the sort of details from Praminda will be on the ILC website, so you can get in touch with Praminda through Chantel. As we're moving on as the sort of the business part of our AGM, just for a few minutes now, I would like to introduce Alan Veazey, who is our